Oh, I can already hear myself. Okay, that's good. Awesome. Alrighty then, we have fresh air. I think everyone has something to drink or is cozy in here. So let's get started, I'd say. So welcome to Container Security. Let's see Falco and Sysdig in action. And my name is Stefan. And you might ask yourself, wait a second, Falco and Sysdig? Which one is it now? So before I start, I would like to ask the question to the crowd. Who's familiar with Falco? Nice, I like that. Who's using Falco? Same hands, but I still like it. And yeah, of course, there is a connection. Why I'm here and wearing the shovel logo with Sysdig, because Falco is sponsored of course by Sysdig, and we have the inventor Loris in our midst, who's still behind the Falco project, of course. But this is basically the connection. So we are heavily still supporting Falco and will continue to use it. And in my presentation, you will actually see it that we are still using it in our complete environment, you could say. And not only we. So let's get started. So again, who is Sysdig? Real short, we see ourselves as builders because we are very open source minded. We, you could say, are the fathers and the sponsors of Falco, as well as the Sysdig open source project. And we are rooted with different partners, as you can see here, and we are, of course, trusted by different companies. And my favorite is, of course, as a huge nerd, that we have Lego under the hood. I really like that, but I'm still waiting for the coupons. No chance. Anyway, it's very good to see that we have different companies and different verticals that are trusting in Sysdig and in Falco in our vision. And the numbers speak for themselves. I personally love the number of Falco downloads of the Falco security framework and how much it is adapted. But I will tell you more details on that in a second as well. But before I start with spreading more love about what we do and what's the product and what's the security solution, I want to draw you a story or tell you a story, draw you a picture, however you want to call it. And again, I would like to ask you, who went through this journey? You want to be more agile, you want to introduce a new environment where your developers can develop on, where you can host your solution or your application. So who has faced something like that? We need Kubernetes, but we don't know which one, or there are a couple of some, or maybe you already have Kubernetes in place. I believe if I ask you, if you have Kubernetes right now, every hand should go up, right? So, absolutely. And in my story, I'm telling you, it's exactly the same. We have a company, they decided to go for containerization, they decided to go with a Kubernetes solution of their choice. Please select your favorite from the slide. And the developers are happy. Why are they happy? Because they can do their job now as they intend to do. They are more agile, they can throw their containers into the environment as they need, they can develop even faster, and I don't have to tell you the benefits of containers anymore because they have been around quite a lot. But with the happy developers, we have, of course, the happy operator guys or the operations team, because they get rid of the legacy burden, like setting up new virtual machines with the dependencies. So even their business gets more agile, more faster, and a bit more relaxed when it comes to provide a proper development platform. And of course, if those two parties are happy, we have the C-level, which is thanking you because you basically build the basis to bring in the money. You become a disruptor. You become fast enough to leave the competition behind. You are amazing. But, of course, every positive story has some party who will notice you in the market as well. And it's not only the competition, it's, of course, our favorite masked hacker guys. Take your picture of choice, but there are always people who see you are successful in the market, you do something right, so you might have something they can take from you and sell to others, to their personal benefit. Let's continue the story here for a second. So the next day comes, maybe the next month, the next year, whatsoever, and our operations guys are starting to scratch their heads because they get the infamous first ticket in the morning. And the ticket is, it's not working as it was yesterday. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong. And there's a lot. The application becomes sluggish. The performance is crap. We have front-end errors, which is extremely frustrating if you have a fast customer-facing application. Higher CPU consumption can be really hurtful if you're running in the cloud. You do not want your applications consuming more performance if they need. New containers are spinning up, which were not planned, which are not in a deployment, a daemon set whatsoever. They're just there. And new files appear. And you know the famous last work. I haven't changed anything. So our ops guy is a proper ops guy. He's doing his job. So he goes around. He goes to the development team and asks, is there anything changed? He's checking the logs. He's checking the health checks. Are they all checking out? He's checking the containers. There's anything you can see here right now. And yeah, nothing was changed. So the journey goes on. Anyone who has worked in operations or as a developer and they are depending on this infrastructure, they will get frustrated. You're looking, you're hunting, you get more and more tickets, you work through everything, but it's not solved. So of course, not only the operations guy get frustrated, the developers as well, because they're stopped in their tracks, and of course, the C-level will flip their tables. Because now you're not able to disrupt the market or to gain the sweet dough from the market or for your customers. The only party who's happy is, of course, the fourth party, because they got maybe the data here in this picture, their credit card information, and they are the very happy ones because they either disrupted your business and got away with the sweet information they wanted, or they just did their damage. So what was missing is, of course, the question. And I was telling you with a certain reason, all those buzzwords, agility, more flexibility, containers, and so on. And you have heard that, I think, over and over again. Of course, you need security, but the approach you need here is a more cloud-native security approach. I know this is, again, a buzzword, but it basically means the security must adapt to the solution or the way you work in a modern world. And I want, of course, to introduce you to one of those solutions, and this is Falco. This is why I asked the question in the beginning, who's familiar with Falco? And Falco is an open source project, again, sponsored by Sysdig. This is why I'm wearing my Sysdig outfit. And we are very proud about the numbers of our community and our contributors, and we are even more proud of who is adapting Falco. So I will translate what Falco stands for on the next slide, but just see those sweet logos. So I think nearly everyone will have this little Apple thing maybe in their pocket. I think so at least, or knows Uber from America. So anyway, Falco is highly adapted even as a professional service or professional security solution in very well-known companies. And to top it all off, Falco is gaining a lot of traction in the market in regards of services you might already use today. So I don't hide it. So if you're talking about Microsoft Defender, you're already looking at Falco. If you're using some Red Hat product, you're using Falco. It's in there. It's built in there. And this is very highly adapted by now by the industry. And we can see that even that Falco is also gaining more traction in the CNCF, in the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. You all know the CNCF map. By now, no one can de-riddle or decrypt it. By now, it's become so big. So this is why I love this new approach, the trail map, which should visualize to you how you should start and continue your journey. And in here, you can see nicely, we are here on the second step of your journey. Right after network and proxy services, when security comes around, you will again see the recommendation to have a look at Falco as an established, as a de facto container runtime standard, a runtime security standard. But now, Falco here, Falco there, what is it actually? So Falco is a cloud-native runtime security project, or we by now are so proud to call it the cloud-native runtime security project. And it is a Kubernetes threat detection engine. We emphasize on Kubernetes, but you can, of course, use it as a Linux service as well, and as we will also see with plugins for Docker containerization still. And what are we basically doing? So I want to demystify this as well. We have a look at the system calls. So we, as a Falco runtime threat detection engine, connecting to your kernel. How we do that, I will show you in a second as well. And we basically look at everything a container or your system creates during its lifetime. So anything that is in a system call, that can be network, that can be file creation and file opening, that can be basically anything a container touches during its lifetime. Quite simple and easy. We know this is not the silver bullet. This is just a tiny piece in a security concept. We are not hiding that, and we thought about it. And what's better than giving you plugins and plugin capabilities? So you either can write your own plugins to facilitate the engine, or you can use plugins we provide, like AWS plugins, Okta plugins, to combine with the Falco capabilities. Now I got it. And this is the gist of it. So we are a threat detection engine with a rule set to provide you the visibility the guys in my story before were lacking of. But again, how does it work? This is all marketing, right? And it's not voodoo. It must work somewhat. And I said I want to show it to you more in action on how it looks like. So how does Falco work is basically you have a Kubernetes cluster. And in a Kubernetes, we also work by industry standards. So you will use a Helm chart from the Falco community and install a Falcon daemon set. So it's basically a pod running on each node inside of your cluster. And how do we get the sweet information? You already see it here on the screen. We facilitate eBPF, like many solutions do by now, but we were one of the very early adapters, and we did not lose any traction by deciding to go with eBPF. There is a secondary model which you can use by injecting a kernel module to integrate with the kernel, but hey, why touching the kernel if you can use, again, industry standards, like here in eBPF? And so you have your containers or your pods running happily in your Kubernetes cluster, and you of course need rules, because looking at system calls, everyone can do that, but the benefit of Falco is that we provide you with an out-of-the-box rule set, or you can even create based on the Falco programming language, if you want to call it that, the Falco language, you can create your own custom rules. And they will skim through your system calls to alert you on certain behavior. If you want to translate it in layman's terms, it's your security camera. Just think of the airport with many people. You have the security camera, and the security camera, the smart security camera, has the job to point out the guys with the gun in their hand. This is what Falco basically does with the system calls and the Falco rules. So if we look at an example, we have again our hooded man with a crazy laptop, and we have just a small examples, like a reverse shell is opened inside the container, mounting a root file system, or someone is copying the database which the container accesses to. And you want to get information of that. So let's stop the file animation, and let's have finally a look, how does that look in real life? And again, yeah, is he the winner? Of course not, because we have something in place to look at it and to alert you. And how that looks like, I want to show you now. So yes, please don't fret, because, oh God, now a terminal shell. I will go through it because there are two events, and I will zoom in on the next slide, so don't worry. It will just give you the clean gist of it, what we detect, and it is quite a lot. This is why I choose this screenshot, because it shows you not a simple alert, oh yeah, something happened. It basically shows you everything. It shows you that something happened, where it happened, in which image, where did the image come from, so the image repository, which I censored here, Sorry for that, because maybe you want to snoop around in my personal repository. And you get even more information. So we see here 2 alerts. I know it's a bit hard to read from far, but 2 alerts basically that someone accessed the container in my example. And in the second, this is where I highlighted it in yellow, that someone is copying data. And in this case, the file I am a database dump is copied in my /temp folder. And Falco was able to grasp it and report it. Let me zoom in the second example a little bit better to show you really more about what information Falco can gather for you. So again, you can define an alert, an easy readable alert. Plus, you get the information what is going on. And like I said, due to the benefits of reading out the system calls, we get full visibility. So we see here that I was very freaking lazy and just used the touch command, so I did not provide a database or prepared something. I just did a touch, but it's visible. You can see it exactly what happened here. You see even where this touch came from, so if it's a legitimate system touch process, or maybe something I tried to rename and run here, because this is also an attacker a method just to hide a binary they are using to infiltrate your system with a legitimate name. So we can even see that. And again, we get more details, like Kubernetes namespace and so on. But by the end of the day, I get all the information, I get the visibility back that was missing due to the agility of the modern way of working, so to say. Because even though the container dies, goes away, this information sticks and I can use it for later investigation. We as Sysdig, we also look at how can this happen? How can this happen in the first place? So what we do is every year, and you can read through those details at your leisure of time, we provide a Sysdig container security report every day, which we released in February. And we have a look, an anonymized look at our customer installation base and see those numbers, which are basically telling us what is going on out there. And we see that here, this is a number I believe you will see on every stage here, on every vendor in the market, that there's still high vulnerability numbers and customers struggling with where should they start with patching their vulnerabilities. Configuration management is a big issue because you grow, you need to implement new tools, you have new teams are fluctuating, and you need to keep on with the configuration. Everything needs to be in place. And it's basically a cat-mouse game. You continuously try to configure your environments and you want to keep them secure. Yes, this is always the mission, but we are really in a fast-paced world. So this is also something we see quite a lot, that we have security and compliance risks in our environments. We see identity and access management is a bit lacking, 90%. So yes, everyone is screaming, is talking about least privileged access rights, but making it a reality is still a mission for most of our customers. So they're talking about, they're planning about it, but they still need something that supports them to do the right identity and access management. And of course, we also have the threat detection and response, which basically means even though you have those sweet alerts like we were seeing here with Falco, you still, of course, need processes in place to take care of them. It's nice that you have a tool that fills your logs. That's great. You can make a tick in your compliance, but you still need to react to it. And this is also still a mission for many customers. So, and you might even ask, okay, now you spread the love of Falco again and how awesome it is in runtime, but there's so much more than runtime, right? We have so much more bits and pieces in regards of security, like we were seeing before. What about CSPM? Do I get a nice web UI management so I don't get eye cancer if I have to look at the terminal shells all day long like I did here before? What about curated rules? If I don't want to write rules, I want someone to do it for me. And what about vulnerability management when I rise numbers like 87% of vulnerable workload? This is where the shovel comes in. So this is where Sysdig Secure comes in, which is the enterprise solution, but still based on Falco and what I have shown you before. So anything, if you get started with Falco, and we can talk about that in our later session this afternoon, if you get started with Falco, you can use your knowledge you gained with Falco and continue with Sysdig Secure. This is one really big benefit. And as you can see, I just have to look at the time. Yeah. So we expand our mission for security exactly on those 4 points I was pointing out with the missions and the criticalities of the customers, and we want to try to tackle those issues, let's say. And we want to do that by providing a security concept from source to run. This is our model. So we want to provide security and visibility already in your infrastructure as code beginning. So if you start to manage your cluster, we want to support you and checking your code for security risks. This goes on with vulnerability management. There I will show you just 2 more slides, which are very interesting and way more interesting than my words here right now. And of course, the configuration issues in your cloud environments and in your Kubernetes environments with CSPM and cloud inventory. This is something we want to support on. The same goes for identity and access management, threat detection, and incident response. Long story short, the complete supply chain from your early beginnings up to the final application running in your environment of your choice. And we highly prioritize on prioritization. I know I use this double now on purpose. So we understand that security solutions are an additional encumberment for our customers. It's just the way it is, because security needs to be taken care of the same way as of your infrastructure, of your code, and whatever you do in IT. So this is why we choose in our solution to provide you with prioritization. We want to give you not only the visibility we have seen before with Falco, but also the visibility in other fields, like in vulnerability management. And we can see that. This is where I brought a little bit more in the see in action field. I was not trusting the internet connection, so this is why I'm using screenshots. Please excuse me that. So yeah, you can already see it, if you log in the first time in Sysdig Secure, we want to give you that coffee cup view. So the first thing you do in the morning, usually I get my first cup of coffee and then have a look at how healthy my systems are. So I can prioritize what I will focus my day on. Where will I start to work on? Is it compliance that is alerting me? Are there vulnerabilities? Or like we have seen some events like with hacker guys, or are there, again, some use not following our least privilege selection? Is there a new user in place which I'm not aware of? This is all what we want to give you in the first place. And to top it all off, it's nice to see that you have homework, but we want to be your guidance. We want to help you getting started, not only throwing numbers at you, but also giving you on the same view the first steps where you have to go, or remediation steps, or even remediation patches right off the batch, so you can use and can get started with fixing your homework, so to say. And one thing that we are really, really proud of, and you will hear it over and over and over again, but it has its reason why we repeat it so many times, is if you have seen our vulnerability management, you have seen every vulnerability management. I'm just honest about that. Any vendor in the market is basically doing the same. Look, this is your workload, this is your vulnerabilities, have fun fixing them. So what we as Sysdig are doing, we're using the Falco capability. We are using we can see inside the container to actually not only give you the information what's going on in there. So if someone would come to me and say, hey, we have 455 packages with known vulnerabilities, please tell me what you're doing the next couple of years. Patching, I believe. I would say this is not the right approach, absolutely not. What we as Sysdig want to bring to the table is the in-use or prioritization view, again, what I was talking about. And when I use this small little filter, and we are more than happy to talk about this in more detail in our stand, we want to show you what is actually consumed by your workload, what is actually loaded by the container. So one thing I believe someone will or has already talked about today is of course you need to keep your workload clean. You just can't go in there and throw your containers left and right and just put in more packages and just see the little thing growing. You want to make sure that what's inside the container is useful and not to your disadvantage. And we want to support that. So in my case, the security playground case, I'm down to 37 packages I need to prioritize because they are my attack surface. They are currently in use and not the rest 400 packages. So I have two informations. First of all, I need to clean up or check what's going on there, why I have so many vulnerable packages in the first place. And the second place is I can start there to feel better at night and can have my well-deserved sleep, so to say. So this is the mission of Sysdig, that we want to use the capabilities we learned from Falco and make it even more usable. So in short, this means we want to stop breaches with no wasted time. Prioritization is key. We want to lift the extra encumberment security tools bring with themselves anyway. We want to lift that, and we want to prioritize what matters to you, detect threats in real time. This is a benefit I was not talking about, but you were able to see with Falco. Since we are on the eBPF stack, we are streaming the events and not loading them by a schedule. So this is a streaming service, so to say, and we detect threats in real time, and we fix fast with context, which I was showing you in the homework or cup of tea view in the beginning. So a little advertisement before I will be closing up, and I promise. So if you're interested in what I've shown you today, we are more than happy to see you around our how to approach container security from open source to enterprise talk later today. You will also see it in the agenda, and if you're not interested in the talk and just want to come by and chat, we are more than happy to. And to close up with a little bit more of a positive note with our company who I was referring to before, so the big bad guy has been now unrevealed thanks to the open source Falco community. We have a happy operations guy back again, we have a happy developer, and we are all back to being amazing. And with that, thank you very much for listening. Oh, way in the back. Hi.
Thank you for the talk. You said we can extend Falco by plugin. I just want to know, is it possible to leverage Falco in that way with custom plugin? So it is by default detecting with custom roles or pre-default roles the vulnerability, and can also take the action against. As not just a detection, it's also taking the action.
Understood. So, just by default, it's detection only. That's correct. This is why we have Sysdig Secure as an option, because in there you would also have the prevention stack, so to speak. However, this is the joy of open source, right? Since Falco can be extended, for example, with Falco Sidekick, which is a UI to Falco, which provides you also with interconnectivities to your complete environment, like webhooks, like API calls and such, you could build on it. So let's say you could have Falco as your detection tool in place and combine it with a webhook that takes care of kicking the container out of your Kubernetes cluster, just for an example. So by default, detection only, but it is extendable, and if that's not enough, have a look at Sysdig Secure. There's one. From the back to the front.
That's good for me.
Yeah, I have a question about the Falco logic. So I guess the logic behind Falco and evaluating the syscalls would be rather complex because they are also valid and sane syscalls. And how do you evaluate, or can you have a word on the false positives and false negatives that you might find?
Yeah, so since Falco is static, it of course depends on a little bit on your infrastructure planning as well. I just want to be honest about that. So it's not magic, it's not machine learning. It depends on static rules. However, there are mechanisms that you can cope with it. I actually had a talk about that, just a chat at the booth right now before that. And so from what I get from people who I talk to when using Falco, of course, if they are introduced with new challenges, like they have a complete new development team and they are not in the process of how they should handle the images, you will of course get new false positives. So Falco must have a place in your complete process planning. It's just a reality. You can't, since it's static rules, you can do exams, you can do all the magics to filter and to set it right, but you should of course plan it through. And this is what I say to any security solution. You need to plan it in the process. I know it's a bit discouraging when you say, I would like to have it more automated, but well, let's say this is the curse and the benefit of Falco, that it's so highly capable of customization, right? Hope that answers a bit the question.
Looks like we don't have any other questions.
Thank
you very much, Stefan.
Thank you.